Thank you so much for being here with us. We appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
So I want to start by asking you, how are you feeling right now in this moment? You have a seat at the table.
I feel great. I mean, it's such a historic moment for Gen Z and for my generation that has always had a voice. Gen Z has been the fuel of the movements that we've had for justice in this country. But now we have a vote. And I feel that weight on me for our generation. I also feel the weight for teachers that, again, have never been able to serve in the state legislature until about 3-4 years ago. And now teachers have a vote as well. So people that have always had a voice and have used their voices for good, but now can tangibly change it in a vote or crucial legislation in our state house. And so I feel very honored and grateful. I feel a lot of weight on me because of that, being the first in many aspects, first teacher, first Gen Z. But understanding that and putting that into my service and understanding that impact and what it means to so many folks that have been long denied a vote, and now they do.
And I want to ask you about your background a little bit, because you came here from a parent-teacher conference, so you are actively serving our kids here. Why did you want to even run for office in the first place?
Well, that's a great question, and I get the question most often. I'm 23 years old, and so when I decided when I was 22 last year, and just got to start off my career. I have a girlfriend who I know would love for me to be with her more often than I'm not on the campaign trail, but it was my students, really. I teach 7th graders, and 7th graders are going through a moment where they're asking a lot of questions. They're asking a lot of questions about why is rent so high? Why is healthcare not affordable or not accessible? Why is my school look different than the school that's 5 miles down the street? I have students that are homeless, students whose parents work 3-4 jobs to make ends meet, students who have unfortunately been victims of gun violence. And they're looking to us as a state for answers to their questions, and we as a state deserve to give them answers that they deserve. And so I cannot look at my students and continue to let them suffer for real. It really is, these questions are from their lived experiences. We can't continue to pretend that a student that is homeless is a normal thing. We can't continue to pretend that a student wondering whether it's going to be their day to die in school because of rampant gun violence is a normal thing. None of these things are normal things. And so I stepped up to run for them so that they could have a voice as well, so they could have a champion as well.
It sounds like education and taking care of Georgia's students, the young people, is a really big passion of yours. When you are sworn in, is that going to be an area that you're going after hard for?
It's my number one focus. No, we need to fully invest in public schools, which means more than just a slogan. I talk about raising teacher pay. I talk about making schools look like schools and investing in school infrastructure, make sure kids have technology and take textbooks, investing in school counselors to make sure they stay in the schools for meeting their kids' social, emotional, and career-wise needs. We need to fully invest in public schools, and that means a plethora of things, and I will be the lion on that in the State House. That's not going to be anything I will let up on.
Clearly,
yes.
You're very passionate about it, so we will come to see that come January
13th. Yes.
January 13th, absolutely. Let me ask you about this. You're a recent graduate from Morehouse. As we just discussed, you are a teacher at Young Middle School. How is life going to change for you once you are sworn in?
Life is going to change a bit. It's going to change. I'm still going to be committed to my students. I'm going to be in the classroom as much as possible. Of course, there'll be days where I take off, unfortunately, but I stay in the classroom. And that's what's very important to me. I made that very clear to my principal and to administration. That it's very important to me that I stay in the classroom because I need to be there for my students in their crucial moment, getting ready for testing and that kind of time, that winter time. But also to make sure that we're continuing with instruction to the fullest fidelity. And so I'm happy that they've been very amenable to me and been very kind to me in the campaign and when I'm starting to serve. But there'll be some changes. And
I was going to ask, so just paint a picture for those of us who are not in the classroom and not in the state legislature. How is a typical school day when you are in session? How is that going to work?
So session runs from about 9 a.m. and it usually concludes on a good day around noon. And so on the good days, hopefully I can go back in the classroom around 12:30, 1 o'clock and finish up with instruction for the rest of the day. I get out of school at about 4:15. There are some days where you have committee hearings, you have other obligations, and those are the days, unfortunately, I won't be in the classroom. But again, the intent is and the purpose is that I will be in the classroom as much as possible and teaching to the fullest fidelity.
All right, sticking to your roots.
Yes.
Let me ask you this, Bryce. Coming into this, you're a part of this new generation. We're kind of seeing a shift when it comes to leadership, a class, not just here in Georgia, but across the United States, those who are now old enough to run and those like yourself who are very close to that age limit getting office. What does this mean for you to be representing kind of this new era, this new class of lawmakers in our country?
Oh yeah, it's a huge deal. You know, my generation has, as I said, been the voices of justice for so long. Look at what we grew up in. We grew up in a rampant climate crisis. The recession of 2008 was, when I was 7 years old, a formative moment in our lives. We've seen now 2 Trump elections. Our generation has been through so much and so many experiences that have formed our kind of political views. And so we're now having the chance to put this in action. I'm going to uplift Gabe Sanchez, who also elected in District 42. Don't quote me on that. District 40, but he's 40 something. But Gabe Sanchez, who's also 27 years old, working class like myself, has been a powerful organizer, and he's also joining me in the State House. But also Gen Z elected officials across this country, like Maxwell Frost in Florida, who is a congressman. We carry the burden of a generation that has been told to wait for so long. And I love that my generation is not the one to listen to the waits. You know, when folks say wait, we say why. And I think that's got to be the fundamental question of why wait? No, you're right. Our generation is one to step up to lead, and I carry that weight with me every single day of they need a voice, and as I said earlier, now they have a vote.
Let me ask you this, Bryce. One topic that really kind of falls into your passion of schools and students is the issue of gun violence in schools. As you know, when you enter your role in the state legislature, you are of a minority, a Democratic minority there. Right. How are you planning to reach across the aisle to your colleagues to try to get something done when it comes to gun violence in schools?
Well, I think it's the benefit of having a teacher in the State House, you know, to speak from that lived experience every single day. No one's there right now that can speak to lived experiences with our students that walk into school every single day, or speak to experiences as a teacher. You know, I pray every day for my students and for the surroundings and for the school building, because I know that this could be the final day. And that's an unfortunate thing. And so I plan to be very vocal approaching my Republican colleagues with those experiences, with me telling them my prayers I have for my students, telling them the experiences of students that have had family members that lost to gun violence or have been victims of gun violence themselves. It's not a normal thing, and we cannot continue to believe that this is normal. And you know, I'm all for solutions. You know, Speaker Burns has said he's probably going to introduce a school safety bill. I'm waiting with hesitant eyes to see what that might be, because we know that all solutions to school safety are not the true solutions to school safety. The issue is just the guns. The issue is the guns. And we have got to be vocal in sharing the pain of families and of students. And, you know, I want folks to feel the pain. You know, it sounds dark, but I really want folks to feel the pain. They need to feel the weight of what they're doing and the weight of their inaction.
And I know you mentioned about Speaker Burns' proposal, which I believe he says that he is willing to continue to look at. It was just a proposal. Would you be open to working with them on, I guess, in your point of view, improving this existing proposal? Do you think the existing proposal is not enough? Well,
I've always said I will work with whoever, whenever, and however to get things done for my community. And so, yes, I offer my support to Speaker Burns in this effort. I'm speaking from as a teacher. You know, school safety is important to me, and so it does need to be better. We cannot over-police our students into safety. We also cannot arm teachers. Those are not true solutions to gun violence. And so I will work with them and be a partner on them on this issue of school safety, but understanding that, you know, the non-starter is arming teachers. A non-starter is over-policing our students that are already, especially in Black and brown communities, already over-policed.
Let me ask you this. What do you think you can do better in your role than your predecessor?
Show up. Be there, speak to them. At the end of the day, I believe I won for several reasons, but I won because I showed up quite literally everywhere. You know, I was at conferences and I'm here doing a campaign related thing. You know, I would go from school to knocking on doors, go from school to trick-or-treating with a family in Westview, go to school, to being at someone's neighborhood backyard, barbecue, go to church every single Sunday, not one church, but 2, 3 churches every single Sunday. I won because I showed up. Folks knew my face, they knew me, and they remembered that, and they valued that. And folks always told me wherever I went, don't forget about us, and I kept my word to them. I will not forget about them. And so what I'm gonna do is show up. I'm going to continue to visit churches. I'm going to continue to visit the backyard barbecues and the coffee shops, because that's what my role should be. You know, when we did canvassing in my community, we didn't just knock on voters' doors and just talk to voters. I think it's wrong. That's wrong with the system. We just only talk to voters and ask them for their vote. You know, I have over 55,000 people, period, in this district who deserve to be spoken to. And so we knock on every single person's door, because the majority of people don't know who their state representative is in the first place. And so we talk to every single person and say, hey, you may not be able to vote, but I'm going to be your state representative. I want to fight for you regardless if you can vote for me or not. That's what matters more, and that's what I'm going to do.
And I think you hit on something pretty important. I do want to ask you this, if you could weigh in. Do you think on the national campaign, especially when it comes for Georgia, did Democrats miss the mark on that, making sure that they are speaking to the people and not just speaking to them when they want their vote?
You know, yes, I agree. You know, I've said this for a long time. When I was president of Young Democrats of Georgia and when I was a party organizer, Democrats have a tendency to only show up in election years, which is unfortunate. We need a party that shows up every year round. I said this in an interview last week. You know, we need to show up to the small events and the big events. And it's just about asking people, are you okay? Folks need to know that we're going to be there for them and we're going to fight for them. Ultimately, folks, there's a void of folks, and there's anxiety where folks don't feel like their politicians or their leaders are fighting for them. And that's the problem. That's a problem, because we need to let folks know we have the platform, we have the message, and let's take it to the voters when they need to hear it most. And that's not an election year, when they don't care, they're tuning it out because there's so many ads and there's so many mailers, they're just tuning out the election. But talking to voters next year, when there's this municipal election, not a big election, talking to voters then, are you okay? What can we do for you? This is what we're doing in the State House, what can we do better? You know, and taking that input in. And I'm also organizer of our hearts. This is what I do. And I talk to folks about how you're doing and what do you need? What can I do better?
And I wanted to ask you about that, because I do know you have a long history of organizing back at home in St. Louis and then here in Georgia as well. When you're out there, you're talking to people on the ground, before as an advocate, now as a lawmaker. I want to bring it back to your district here. When you were going out there campaigning, what was that #1 issue that people came to you saying that they want to send you to the Gold Dome to change this for me? What was that #1 issue?
You know, it was so funny that it varies by household, but overwhelmingly what I heard is affordable housing. Rent is too high, mortgages are too high, interest rates are too high. We need to make opportunity more accessible to folks. Folks, you know, this is a district that has Morehouse, Clark Atlanta, Georgia Tech, Georgia State. We have over 300,000 folks that come to our state every single year wanting to stay in Georgia and produce in Georgia. But the reason that college students leave the state is because housing is just too high. They can't afford to live here anymore. And so I'm an economics major, so I talk about brain drain. When you have college students that want to stay in Georgia but cannot afford to stay in Georgia because housing is too high, they're sending their talent and their opportunity and their value to another state. And so that then for states like Michigan or South Carolina or Florida will win when we can keep that talent right here in Georgia and make sure that we're growing Georgia's economy with Georgia-grown folks. And so housing is too high. We're tackled by blighting, which is when developers come in and promise to buy land, to develop land, and they don't. And then that raises mortgage rates, it raises rental rates. Developers that harass our senior citizens, offering to buy their homes and this, that, and the other. We need to protect senior citizens and pass a robust homestead exemption for them as well. Tackle rent control that the state says right now that locality cannot control the prices of rent. So I can go on and on about housing. I'm a nerd about housing, as you can see. But housing was oftentimes one of the most cited things that folks just want to be able to breathe a little bit more.
Absolutely. And then just a follow-up to that, when you get into state legislature, session is called, are there any policies in regards to affordable housing that you would like to see passed?
Let's just talk about blighting. Mayor Dickens has passed a blighting law in the city for the city of Atlanta, which I think should be the model for the state. And I'm ready to work with state legislators on that as well. I think we need a statewide model because blighting doesn't just hurt urban communities, it also hurts suburban and rural communities as well. And this is a statewide issue of developers, most of the time from out of state, that are coming into our communities, offering to develop land, do this and the other, and they just don't. They just leave it. And they just leave it to collect dirt and trash and so much more, and that causes a strain on the community. It lowers community value, but also it raises property values. So it lowers the community like morale and raises property values. And so I want a statewide kind of, I'm not thinking my memorandum, I'm missing the word, but a statewide kind of policy that deals with blighting.
That deals with blighting, not just here in the metro, but across the state, because you feel like that could solve a lot of issues.
The state legislature passed the affordable housing law last session. There was a bipartisan. That wasn't everything we needed? Absolutely not. It was full of compromise, and compromise is good, but no, it was not everything we needed. So there is a will there to push for more affordable housing. And so I guess I'm going to find those state legislators and get to work.
Let me ask you this. I know you have not even started your session yet. You have your orientation coming up soon. But when you think 5 years into the future, do you have an idea of where you'd like to be?
I didn't see myself running for this seat. As I said, I was 22, didn't even think about running for office. I'm hopeful that the people of District 56 will re-elect me in 2026 and 2028 and continue to let me to serve. At the end of the day, my heart is to service. I'm not beholden to a title, I'm beholden to service and to the work of the people. And so I'm hopeful that District 56 continues to let me serve.
And would you say, do you see yourself running for any higher office, such as a Congress seat or Senate or even governor maybe?
You know, I get at
or even president.
You know, I get this question a lot. President is, that's a big one. I'm beholden to God's fate, you know. I let God determine what God wants for me. I'm not going to say yes or no to that, because I truly don't know. I didn't see myself running for this seat. So I can't say definitively no, I'm not going to do that, because if that's what God has in store for me, that's what God has in store for me. I'm going to walk in wherever He wants to.
All right. Amen to that.
Amen.
Bryce, last question. What is your message to those who, not just those who have voted you in, but those who you'll be serving regardless on if they voted for you or not?
Well, yes, you know, this is big. First of all, thank you for your trust and support and your faith in me to do the job. But secondly, this campaign was never about the title, as I said. It's about the work. And I said we need a champion from Bankhead to Buckhead. This district includes parts of Buckhead and also includes parts of Bankhead. No matter who you are, where you come from, who you love, how much you make, you're deserving of someone who's going to fight for you, who's going to champion you, who's going to see you and speak to you. You're deserving a champion, whether you vote or not. Whether you're gay or straight, black or white, you're deserving of a champion. And so I will be a champion for every single person in this district. Their issues are my issues. Their values are my values. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. There's no difference between that. I'm going to fight for you whether you vote for me or not, because that's what I'm sent here to do. And that's what every single Georgian deserves. They deserve a fighter. They deserve someone that's going to see them, speak to them, and be a champion for them at the end of the day.
All right. Bryce, thank you so much for coming in. We really appreciate it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We hope to see you back here.
I will be back. Thank you.